In my first year of Econland, in my first year, year one, I see that the original interest rate is 3%, and the original income tax is 24%. The original corporate tax rate is 30%, and the original government expenditure is 30 billion. Now, in my first year, my goal is to get a real GDP growth of more than 2.5%, an unemployment rate of lower than 5%, an inflation rate which should be lower than 3% but above zero, and I should keep a budget deficit of just below. I should keep a budget deficit or surplus below 3%. In my first year, I will want to change my interest rate. I think by changing interest rate to 2.5%, therefore decreasing it by 0.5%, the multiplier effect would tells me that it will have a big change. But it won't have a significant too much of a change, but it will have a big change in aggregate demand. It will have a change in aggregate demand because since there's a less interest rate, there'll be a less cost of borrowing money. Therefore, there will be more consumers will want to borrow money. Therefore, more money will be injected in the economy, so more money will be spent. Therefore, you'll be shifting aggregate demand to the right, therefore stimulating the economy. I don't want to decrease it more than 0.5% because I feel that if I decrease it too much, this will lead to too much inflation. And leading to too much inflation, I feel will lead me to hyperinflation. But I also have to look at the negative effects. If you decrease interest rate too much, it might weaken your own currency. Then my second change I will want to do I will be changing my corporate tax rate. From 30%, I'll be decreasing by 2%. Why I want to change it is because there'll be less tax on firms, less tax on corporations. Means they will be producing more, and since maybe more there'll be a higher production, there'll be more exports. So there'll be more exports of these corporations or these firms, therefore they'll be earning more money. And this earning more money will lead to a higher real GDP growth. And if corporation has less tax, maybe they can provide, if corporation tax is lower, this also can provide more jobs in these corporations and more jobs in these firms. So since they have more money in their hand. So therefore, this effect would also decrease also unemployment. Taxes have a negative multiplier since the government is retrieving money from the consumers and from the corporations. But if I'm to decrease tax, therefore there'll be less of a negative multiplier for corporation tax rate. Then another factor I want to change is the government expenditure. I want to change government expenditure and increase it by $1 billion. I want to change this because there will be more money in the government. And since right now, in the present, I've got an inflation of 3. I don't want I've got an inflation of 2%. I can increase government spending even if I'm increasing inflation. I just need to keep inflation 3%. Therefore, I don't want to increase too much government expenditure, because if I increase it by, let's say, 10 billion or 3 billion, you'll see a massive growth and you'll see a massive increase in inflation also. I'm okay with, I think my goal here is to increase inflation and not to get too much inflation and to keep it below 3%, because that's the major goal I want. And stimulating the economy there'll be a higher aggregate demand, and this will stimulate the economy. Higher government expenditure also will lead to a reduction in unemployment. This is because these government expenditure could be given, would create jobs. Perhaps, for example, government expenditure might be could be creating infrastructure. By creating infrastructure, there will be new jobs needed. Therefore, you decrease unemployment and keep it below 5%. Some effects it can have is that I have to be careful not to increase it too much, since this will lead to an overstimulation of the economy. Too much money is being pumped in. Too much money then on can lead to too much inflation. The multiplier effect states that this will stimulate increasing government expenditure by 1 billion only, which is a small factor of 30, will create a big impact on the economy. Therefore, I have to keep in mind that there shouldn't be that increasing by 1 billion is a good number, not increasing by too much, and especially not increasing by 2 billion or 3. 1 billion is a good change. I won't be changing my income tax rate. Why? Because basically, I want to keep income tax rate at 24% because I feel that if I increase too much tax, since I'm already stimulating the economy by decreasing interest rate and also increasing the government expenditure, I feel that there's no need for me to affect the income tax rate. Because by affecting the income tax rate, it'll only be leading to more inflation and be leading to more of a stimulation. I want to stimulate the economy not at too much of a fast rate. Otherwise, if I stimulate too much in a fast rate, this will lead for my economy to go too much into a boom. And by going too much in a boom, then later on, it will then fall. And then I'll find myself in dilemmas. Therefore, I believe that these factors which I will change, therefore, the things I will change will be, I'll have a 2.5% interest rate, 28% corporate tax rate, a 31 billion government, I'll be spending 31 billion, and I won't be changing any income tax rate.